Hi, good morning, Maria, back with another video. It's 9:22 a.m. It is April 2nd. The time period is just like flying by. So I decided to come on here and make a video because I don't think I've made any videos in the last few days, but I've just been having a lot of emotional ups and downs, trying to figure out what I'm doing with my life. It's very confusing. If anybody has been doing any research on targeted individuals, gang stalking, human trafficking, it's very hard for targets to get back on their feet. So you don't know which direction to go in, mainly because after something like this happens, there's a lot of commotion in the air, and there's still a lot of tension, and you don't know exactly where to direct your energy, and it can be very confusing for a lot of people. So one of the reasons why most targets don't return back to the workforce is because they're dealing with a lot of psychological trauma, number one. Number two is because people still want to hold grudges and stuff like that. So it's a very difficult thing for a person to get back on their feet. So I'm well aware of this, okay? I'm well aware of the damage that gets caused by the foolishness of other people. But so I'm just trying to figure out what I'm going to do. You know, I've been looking for work, I've been putting in the effort, but I really don't feel as though I'm really making any progress. And it's very discouraging. And so I'm tired of feeling like, feeling being in this position. You know what I mean? I really want to get back to work as soon as I possibly can, but it's something that's beyond my control. And all I can do is just sit it out and wait. But I've been thinking a lot about, how this has affected my life and the direction of where I want my life to go. Obviously, I'm a divorced person, and I've been divorced for quite a long time, and it's very important that I sever ties with my ex-abusers, which I do. I mean, I look at this as an extreme form of abuse, and it's difficult because, I was thinking about the residual effects of cult-based mind control. And what this is, it's definitely a form of cult-based mind control. Why? Because I had mentioned before that oftentimes they resort to religious propaganda in order to create divisions and to ostracize certain individuals. And, when I think about the groups of people who got involved in this, see, a cult, a religion, if you're basing this on religion, then it has to be one frame of mind, okay? Like you have to have one particular religious group that is unified in thought, belief, and so on and so forth. And the very fact that there were so many people who were involved in this, like I mentioned before, there were Lutherans, Catholics, Protestants, Presbyterians, Baptists, so on and so forth. So it was really a launch against me. Okay, it had nothing to do really with religion or anything like that, but it was more of a personal attack against me. So they used certain people. Even like I know this particular group is not a fan of Catholic people, but yet I noticed that they didn't have any problem using Catholic people involved in the targeting. So you can see that this is cult-based mind control. It's a warped form of manipulation. And so once you're dealing with people who have been victims or who've been a part of cult-based mind control, you understand that you are no longer able to trust them because the brainwashing runs very deep. Let me give you an example. When I was married to my ex-husband, okay, he had mentioned several times to me that he dealt with a form of bullying or some sort of manipulation of mind or force type of pressure from a particular religious group while he was living in Arizona. That was initiated by his aunt, I believe. Okay, and he spoke very poorly of her. He whatever, but yet he was fully cooperative in the effort with his aunt in order to destroy my career. Okay, basically. So it's like you wonder, how is it that people can be so hypocritical? It's mainly because cult-based mind control is where one of the aspects of cult-based mind control is where they might be very nice to you. They might even, while they're not in the presence of their controller or their handler, their main handler, they have their own personality, they have their own thoughts, their beliefs, or whatever. But once they are in communication with their handler, then the whole story changes. Like, I know I had mentioned times, he would talk about, he would even create art sometimes, of certain like deities or whatever, which would be in complete, what do you call it, contradiction to his religious belief, right? But he still like really liked, what do you call it? I'm gonna have to pause this. Hang on. Okay, so anyway, so basically what it is that they basically have two frames of mind or thinking. Like they think one way when they're not in control, or that person is, their handler is not with them. But then if they are get in contact with their handler, then their views completely change. So I know there were several times, like for example, I mentioned before, like he and I would go shopping, and there were times where he even suggested that we go shopping for clothes or whatever. I know there was a place over on Ming Avenue who had this really cute little shop, and he said, "Oh, I noticed this new store. Let's go over there and check it out. You might want something." So I remember him taking me there, right? So if there was, but this is how he is in front of me. But then when he's with his controller, his handler, or whatever, then the story completely changes. That's a form of cult-based mind control. Like, it's so deceptive. It's very strange. But anyway, so what I've been thinking about, what I want for my life now, is obviously complete severance from these people. Okay, I can't even. I'm disturbed by who these people are. Also, I've obviously have disconnected from my blood relations. And so now that I'm dealing with the after effects of gang stalking, I see the importance mainly to keep myself protected. That's like the main thing. The main thing is for me to use discretion in my interactions with people, because I can no longer trust people at all. And that's the way it's going to be, and it's not going to change, because once you deal with something this wide scale, and then especially when you think about how other people willingly got involved with something that they deep down inside knew was wrong. Okay, like if somebody was saying, I mean, you're looking at this particular family, and they have a completely different lifestyle, and yet they're trying to impose their beliefs and systems on somebody who basically is minding their own business. And I mean, the whole thing is like how somebody could participate in something like this, and then you can turn around and trust them. It's impossible to do. It's impossible to do. So I have to deal with that, But I was watching some videos on tiny houses. Now, obviously, I'm not in a position to go buy a tiny house, but it's always the idea of living in like distance, or like in a rural area, has always appealed to me. That's not something that's in my grasp. I think some of these little tiny houses are really cute, but it's coincides with my nature, like who I am as a person. I prefer to be in an environment where I don't really have to deal with a lot of neighbors. I want my peace. I want my quiet. I would love to be as close to nature as I possibly can. So then you have to substitute, okay? You have to substitute. But one thing I do know is that I need to feel protected. I need to feel safe from people. Because after you deal with something like that, your life will never be the same. And then their goal is to change your view and your thinking, okay? But in fact, all it does is confirm everything that you've already believed. Okay, you understand that these people they're not the kind of people that you want to deal with. Okay, under any circumstances, you want nothing to do with these people. So you need to make sure, for targeted individuals, you need to make sure that you have a very clear idea of what it is you want in life. And what I want in life is, number one, just to get through it at this point. Just to get through it, because I will tell you, in my mind, I don't really feel as though there's anything of any value outside of my front door. And that's sad to say, but it's true. It's like, most people are deceptive. There's a lot of people who have very weak minds. They're not in a position to actually think through. They do all kinds of shady things. They don't really even understand why they do it, So I feel as though, it's important for me to protect myself. And that's what I tend to. One moment. Okay, so back to my video. See, I had a serviceman come in. serviceman came in and he needed to change the filters. And when I'm dealing with people like service people, people who come in unexpectedly, I'm polite, okay? But it's gotten to the point where I don't even trust anyone. Just I make sure that they do their job and then they leave, and there's no nice conversation or anything like that. Just get it done and get out of my house. It just has to be that way, okay? Because once, like I said, you no longer can trust people. It's reality, okay? If you dealt with something like this, if you've been mobbed out of your job and then continuously went to one employer after another, and you had all this stuff going out in the community, this is a natural response to that form of abuse. It's completely natural. I will not feel bad about my decision to be this way. And it's actually not even a decision. It's just something that comes naturally. It's just like, you know what, you're polite, okay? I'm polite. Let's get this done and just move on, okay? I mean, you have to be that way, okay? So I don't want to, I want to go back to work, but see, I'm not under the false belief that going back to work is going to change all my problems, because that's what some people think, and that's not it, okay? Going back to work is going to help me pay my bills. Going to help me pay my bills, okay? But it's not going to change my life in any way where I'm going to feel as though it's not going to help me feel safer. I will not ever feel safe. I'm always going to be protected. I'm always going to be very concerned about my protection. I'm always going to be very leery of people in general. I mean, I'm always going to be polite, and I can still, do what I have to do. But it's changed me inside. It has intensified all those feelings that I originally had. It's made things even more difficult for me to even feel safe around people, anyone, really. But anyway, so this is what we were dealing with. We were dealing with cult-based mind control. Is what it is. For people who aren't really familiar with cult-based mind control, you might want to go ahead and Google that too. If you've looked into gang stalking or human trafficking, you might want to look into that, okay? Because it's really interesting information. And then once you start understanding what that is, you'll understand that this is exactly what it is, okay? I'm very sad that religion got involved in this because things get really distorted. And things can get, you'll be surprised how so-called good Christians can become the worst bullies in the world. Okay? I mean, it is quite eye-opening. So, I mean, I'm completely like, I think that there's a lot of chatter. Of course, people talk about my so-called love life, which is completely non-existent. I'm not interested in that. And I would not want to be involved with any sort of romantic relationship, especially if they're intertwined with my work. I wouldn't want it. Why? Because that's abuse right there. Okay, that's just like, no, I'm not interested in that in my life. What I'm interested in is living out my life the rest of my years, which I realize how old I am. It's like, I think about this every day, and it's like, you know what? This is what I want for my life, okay? I want peace, okay? I want to be protected from people, especially unscrupulous people, which there tends to be far too many. I want to live out my life principles. Okay, my life principles, okay? Not principles that people are trying to force on me, my life principles, because I believe in my life principles. You see what I'm saying? And so that's the only thing that really matters to me. And I don't have very many years left on this in this earth, okay? Very few. And especially working years, okay? So I feel as though I'm valuable to an employer. I have a lot to offer. I want to work for a company that takes my skills in consideration. That's what I want to get hired for. I don't want to get hired for anybody's strange plots or love traps or anything like that. This is not what I'm working for. I'm working because I want to use my skills and enhance my skills into a job that I can feel like I can apply myself to. That's it. That's it. And I'm very resentful that there's so much unprofessionalism out there, that there's so much of that out there. You know what I mean? The thing is, it's like my interaction with people is going to be non-existent. We do have this issue of social distancing now, right? So I was thinking, though, because I'm not dating anyone, and I really don't have any interest in dating. I really don't. But I was thinking about how difficult that must be for people now. You know what I mean? There was a video, I think his name is Long Beach Griffey. I watch his videos from time to time, and he's pretty funny, right? His videos are usually anywhere from like 40 something seconds to maybe 2 minutes long. They're not very long, okay? But they're very funny, and some of them are quite, what's the word for it? Uh, just eye opening or thought provoking. But anyway, he was talking about this particular joke, the manscape thing. But he was talking, but it made me think, okay, like for people who are into the dating scene, this social distancing thing really put a damper on their little plans, okay? But for me, it's like I don't want to be entangled into any relationship, whether we were under socialized, isolated or not. It's like I don't want to deal with abusive people. I don't want to deal with a clash of my principles versus the principles of that person's family. I don't want that in my life. I don't want it because I will not cooperate with it. The reason why is because been there, done that, right? Been there, done that. And then also, I understand. See, I know, contrary to what my ex brother in law was talking about, we weren't raised religious, okay? But I'm a very spiritual person, meaning when I was younger, I took it upon myself to study the Bible, look into different things, and I applied these things to my life on my own, okay? Nobody can take credit for the development of my spiritual life. No one can. That was all me, all mine. Actually, growing up, most of my family members thought that I was a little bit too fanatical, really. I don't think myself as fanatical at all, really, but I just feel as though this is my life principles, these are the things I believe in, and this is a lifestyle that I choose to live for myself, okay? Based on how I interpret things, how I understand things. And I believe that I live a pretty good life. Like I treat people well. Hang on a second, I'm going to pause this one. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I treat people well. And I live a good life. You know what I mean? And I just want to live out the rest of it. Not in solitude, but I'm going to be very, very careful. Okay, very, very careful. And I just want to, number one, I don't want to be a burden to anyone in my family. Like I don't like the fact that, my son's taking on all this responsibility, making sure I have a roof over my head. I don't want that. I'd rather die than be in a situation like this. This is the truth, okay? I really would, okay? I would not want to be in a situation like this. So I'm not happy, that I was forced into this situation by people that I don't even care about. I don't care about these people. I don't. And there's no way in the world I could possibly ever care about them. I feel very disgusted by the entire thing. Excuse me. But, so yeah, I mean, like, I meet people or talk to people, and it's like, I don't want people to think that I'm being angry or hateful towards them, because that's just not it. It's just that it's, other than being polite or something like that, it can't go any further than that. Like, I don't really want to, there's nothing in me that wants to interact on a friendly term. There just isn't, like out in the street or whatever. I can't do that because I can't trust anyone. I'm working on a video about gang stalking. It's a 2-part series. I'm thinking about merging it all. I'm playing around with this whole thing, okay? Because it's like, I don't know. I'm fairly new to PowerPoint. And I really want to make sure that this whole thing like merges together. But it's basically talking about the correlation between gang stalking and human trafficking. And I really want to put this together in a way that people are going to understand and connect the dots. But I'm basically just saying is that the purpose of this, okay, is to destroy someone's life. And my life has been destroyed. As far as I'm concerned, my life is destroyed. Like I don't feel as though I have anything really to care about at this point. And I know people constantly putting this whole emphasis on, you shouldn't get in a relationship. I don't want a relationship. I don't want one. Okay. Why? Because it just doesn't mesh well with my world, especially as old as I am. I have no desire to. None. Okay. And just because, someone gets up in the morning and puts on decent clothes or whatever, has nothing to do with that. Nothing to do with it at all. You know what I mean? And I just wish people would get out of my personal life. I resent it. It's no one's business. No, it's business. Okay. It's like that's entirely too intrusive. It's like, I don't appreciate that. You know, I'm not going to involve myself romantically with anyone. I refuse. I don't want it. I would never trust them either because they could be in association with people that I don't want, and they could be what do you call it? Double agents, much like Joel. I believe Joel was a double agent. He was somebody who was, you know, he'll say one thing, he'll promote one thing, he'll approve of one thing, okay? But behind your back, he's doing something else, okay? Which I want to talk about some of these so-called religious groups, okay, who pose to be one thing. Like, I'm not an atheist myself, but I do know that there are a lot of atheist groups, right? Some of these so-called soldiers, these fake soldiers for Christ will go out and pretend to be atheist, okay? And they'll have these like little meetup groups. And what it is just that you're trying to spy and see who is an atheist, okay? I'm not an atheist, okay? But there are some, okay? So they'll have this little group, and these people who are atheists are looking for other people to interact with other atheists. They'll go to these particular groups when in fact it's not an atheist group at all. It's a person who feels very strongly about dominion theology so that they can turn around and create like a war against this person. You know what I mean? So some of these people, you got to be careful. You have to be careful out there. And I would like to say that, you know, I know that in the Bible it talks about be careful who you make stumble because you are spiritually responsible for that person. It's when, like, for example, a so-called Christian pretends to be or brings reproach on the name of God because of their hypocritical lifestyle, okay? And there are some people who are atheists who are atheists because they are basically turned off by the religious structures that they've actually, you know, they've acknowledged. They just don't see any real proof or examples of any good works of these people. So in their mind, and they don't separate it. They don't understand that this is not God. These are just misguided people, selfish people, greedy people, whatever, people with their own agenda doing their own thing. And so that's not, it really shouldn't reflect on God at all, okay? But some people, because they are so turned off, they choose just to go completely different opposite way. They don't want anything to do with God at all, period, because of the terrible examples of these people who created horrible examples, because they're not really Christ-like, or they're not really putting in an effort to serve God. They're doing this because they like the power, they like the control. They are really on the other side, but they're wearing this mask, of which the Bible talks about as well. There's a lot of deception out there in the so-called religious world that you have to be careful about. So anyway, so I was thinking about what I want for my life, and really I don't want much. I just want to engage in my hobbies. I want to be kind to people who deserve it. You know what I mean? I want to live out the rest of my life in peace, and that's one of the reasons why I've been looking at these little videos on tiny homes, like, and some of these little homes are really cute, right? I mean, like I said, I'm not in a market to buy one, even a tiny home. I think a lot of people want tiny homes because it's for people who want to live a minimalist lifestyle, and I'm fine. I'm very fine with all that. Like, I would like to be closer to nature, and I would like to be as distanced as I possibly can from the rat race. You know what I mean? So it's like, that would be nice if I could do that. That would be so nice if I had like a little tiny home out in the middle of, like, you know, a nice lush area, and I could look at the stars at night and just be peaceful. No street lights or nothing, just all natural lighting. That would be so amazing. I would be so happy and so filled with this like extreme energy and joyfulness. It would be great. But unfortunately, you know, I'm in a situation beyond my control that I basically have to get what I have to get. And that's unfortunate, because with a lot of targets, you know, we're not in a position where we can make those decisions for ourselves. They're in the hands of other people. Let me ask you something. Does that make sense as an American citizen? No, it doesn't. Okay. But you're dealing with people who are extremely abusive. And so once you understand that you're in an abusive situation, which I fully understand, you just have to make do with what you have. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to make do. You know what I mean? But these are the things I want for my life. I want my life to be about protecting me, protecting me from unscrupulous people is basically what it is. And it's very important for me. So I'm going to wrap up this video. I hope all you TIs out there are staying safe, keeping your eyes open, and I will be back with another video some other time later. Take care.